It was supposed to be a quiet night at home. The hum of the refrigerator, the soft glow of my phone, everything was calm. Then, out of nowhere, the lights flickered and plunged my entire house into complete darkness. I assumed it was just a brief outage. I felt for my phone, hoping for the comforting glow to guide me, but it was dead. Battery fully charged just moments before. This was no ordinary blackout. My neighborhood was notorious for random power outages, but this felt different. Through the silence, there was an unnatural stillness. The air felt charged, like something was waiting. I stood there, listening intently, trying to shake off the rising unease. I was about to laugh it off when I heard it, a soft, faint whisper like someone was right there, just out of reach. But I was alone. Or so I thought. The whisper grew louder, taking form. It sounded like my name, repeated over and over, a hypnotic chant that both terrified and mesmerized me. I froze, straining to make sense of it. I grabbed a flashlight from a drawer, switching it on. The beam was weak, but it cut through the dark just enough. I swept it around the room, half expecting to see a face in the shadows. But nothing. Only the empty living room. Suddenly, my flashlight flickered, and for a split second I saw something in the beam. A figure. Dark, shadowy, but unmistakably there. It vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving me wondering if it had been real or just my imagination. I tried to calm myself, rationalizing that it must have been a trick of the light. But then I felt it, a cold breath on the back of my neck, sending chills down my spine. I whipped around, but no one was there. Desperate, I dialed my neighbor's number, but the line was dead. I checked my phone again. Still no signal, no battery. It was as if the blackout had swallowed every bit of power. Then the sound returned, louder this time. It wasn't a whisper anymore, but a low, guttural growl. It echoed through the house, bouncing off the walls. My heart raced as I realized it was coming from the basement. I hesitated, every instinct telling me to leave, but something compelled me forward. With the flashlight trembling in my hand, I slowly descended the stairs, each creak amplifying my fear. The basement was pitch black, the kind of darkness that seemed to absorb light. I shone the flashlight ahead, revealing boxes, shadows, and then a pair of eyes, gleaming in the dark. I gasped, stumbling backward, almost dropping the flashlight. But when I steadied the beam, the eyes were gone. Only the silence remained, thick and oppressive. I tried to reason with myself. Maybe it was a cat, or some trick of my mind. But deep down I knew better. Something was down here lurking, watching me. I decided to retreat, to get out of the house entirely. But as I turned, the basement door slammed shut, trapping me in the dark. I pounded on the door, yelling, but my voice was swallowed by the silence. Then the footsteps started. Slow, deliberate, echoing from behind me. I held my breath, refusing to turn around. Whatever it was getting closer. I closed my eyes, hoping it would disappear. But the footsteps stopped right beside me, and I felt that cold breath on my skin again. Gathering every ounce of courage, I opened my eyes and swung the flashlight around, determined to face whatever was there. But the room was empty, the air still. I tried the door again, and this time it creaked open. I bolted up the stairs, desperate to escape, but as I reached the top, I saw something move in the corner of my eye. A shadowy figure stood at the end of the hall, watching me. It whispered my name once more before disappearing into the darkness. My legs gave way as I collapsed against the door, my heart pounding in terror. The power returned abruptly, flooding the house with light. Everything looked normal, familiar. But I knew better. I hadn't imagined it. That presence was real, lingering, waiting in the shadows. I didn't sleep that night, haunted by those eyes and that whisper calling my name. Days passed and I began to feel watched, even in broad daylight. Every time I close my eyes, I see that shadowy figure standing in the dark, waiting. I'm never truly alone anymore. The darkness left something behind, and I fear it's here to stay. The evening had been ordinary, a quiet night in, watching TV. Suddenly, every light, screen, and device went dead, plunging my house into an eerie silence. I assumed it was a routine power cut, but a creeping sensation told me something was off. I stood up, feeling my way through the dark, but then heard an unexpected knock on my front door. At first I ignored it, hoping it was just a prank, but the knocking continued, louder and more insistent, echoing through the silence. My pulse quickened. I reached for my phone to call for help, but it was dead. Trapped in darkness with only the relentless sound pounding at my door, I knew something wasn't right. I peered through the peephole, expecting to see a face, but there was nothing. Only the faint outline of my porch, shrouded in shadows. The knocking stopped abruptly, replaced by an unsettling silence. Just as I was about to turn away, the door handle jiggled, as if someone was trying to open it from the outside. I stepped back, heart pounding. Whoever was out there wasn't leaving anytime soon. I decided to confront it, to prove to myself it was just a harmless visitor. I opened the door, ready to yell, but no one was there. The empty street stretched out before me, drenched in darkness. As I closed the door, I noticed faint footprints, wet and muddy, leading from the doorstep down the hall. They hadn't been there before. Panic surged through me as I realized someone had been inside. I followed the prints cautiously, my breathing shallow. They led from the hallway to the living room, where they stopped abruptly, vanishing as if the intruder had dissolved into thin air. Suddenly I heard a faint humming, an eerie melody coming from somewhere deeper in the house. I tried to steady my nerves, inching toward the sound, flashlight trembling in my hand. I entered the kitchen, where the humming seemed louder, more tangible, like someone was standing right beside me. I swung the flashlight around, illuminating every corner, but saw nothing. Then the flashlight flickered, casting strange shadows across the room. For a brief moment I saw a figure, a tall, shadowy silhouette with hollow eyes, staring back at me from the dark. My heart raced as I backed away, but the figure lingered, silent and unmoving. Its eyes seemed to follow me, piercing the darkness like tiny voids. I forced myself to look away, rushing to the back door to escape, but it wouldn't budge. I pulled and twisted the handle, but it was as if the door had been sealed shut from the outside. The humming stopped, replaced by heavy footsteps behind me. Each step echoed, getting closer. I didn't dare turn around. I could feel its presence looming over me. I bolted down the hallway, desperate to escape, but every door seemed locked, trapping me in a maze of shadows. I was beginning to feel hopeless, cornered, with nowhere left to hide. Then a voice whispered my name, soft but menacing. It felt like cold fingers sliding over my skin. I pressed myself against the wall, paralyzed with fear. Gathering courage, I swung the flashlight around once more, determined to confront whatever it was. The figure stood there, inches away, staring at me with an empty, unreadable gaze. Just as I was about to scream, it vanished, as if absorbed by the darkness itself. The house fell silent once again, but I knew it wasn't gone. It was hiding, waiting. I stumbled back to the front door, praying it would open. As I reached for the handle, the lights flickered back on, revealing the empty room. But the footprints remained, a haunting reminder that I wasn't alone. I spent the rest of the night wide awake, every sound making me jump. I told myself it was just my imagination, but deep down, I knew better. That presence wasn't a figment of my mind. It had been real, and it had left a mark. Ever since that night, I can't shake the feeling of being watched. Shadows seem to shift on their own, and sometimes I hear faint humming in the distance. Whatever entered my house during the blackout is still with me, lurking, waiting for the lights to go out once more. It was a calm night, my apartment bathed in the soft glow of the streetlights outside. I was getting ready for bed when, out of nowhere, the lights went out. Total darkness swallowed my surroundings, and silence settled in like a thick fog. I grabbed my phone, thinking it would be my lifeline, only to find the battery had drained inexplicably. That's when I heard the faintest creak coming from my hallway. I brushed it off, thinking it was just the building settling, but the sound continued, soft and deliberate, like cautious footsteps. My heart quickened, and I forced myself to stay still, listening intently. Each creak felt closer, like something, or someone, was moving toward me, unseen in the darkness. My breath caught as I realized I was not alone. I froze, hoping the noise would stop, but it only grew louder. It seemed to be heading straight for my bedroom. I felt trapped, cornered in the pitch-black silence. I took a cautious step toward the door, heart pounding. As I moved, I felt a chilling breeze graze my skin, despite every window and door being shut tightly. Reaching the bedroom door, I peered into the hallway. The darkness was suffocating, and my imagination conjured shapes that seemed to move just beyond my sight. Suddenly, a faint, raspy voice whispered my name, sending a jolt of terror down my spine. It was so close, as if someone was standing right beside me. I turned sharply, but the hallway was empty. I rushed to the kitchen, fumbling for the flashlight I kept in the drawer. My hand shook as I clicked it on, illuminating the narrow beam in front of me. But the beam seemed to dim, as if the darkness was swallowing the light. Then I saw it, shadows pooling at the far end of the hallway, forming a shape, vague but unmistakably human. It was just standing there, watching me. I tried to shout, to demand it leave, but my voice caught in my throat. It felt like the darkness itself had seeped into my lungs, rendering me silent. The shadow figure began to move, its outline shifting, growing taller, more defined. It took a step toward me, and I stumbled back, nearly tripping over my own feet. I sprinted to the bathroom, slamming the door shut and locking it. Leaning against it, I listened to the silence, hoping it would go away. But then, the door handle started to turn, slowly, deliberately. My heart hammered as I watched the handle shake, but the door held. I backed away, pressing myself against the cold tile wall, gripping the flashlight like a lifeline. Just as suddenly as it had started, the rattling stopped. I held my breath, hoping the nightmare had ended. But the silence felt heavier, thicker, pressing down on me. Then, faint scratching sounds began on the other side of the door, slow and deliberate, as if someone was dragging their nails across it, savoring every inch. I squeezed my eyes shut, wishing for it to end, but the scratching grew louder, more frantic, until it seemed like the door would splinter. Gathering my courage, I opened my eyes and prepared to face whatever was out there. But as I reached for the handle, the scratching stopped abruptly. I opened the door slowly, peering into the hallway. It was empty, but I felt the cold presence lingering just out of sight, watching me from the shadows. I backed into my bedroom, locking the door and huddling under my blanket, praying for morning to come. The darkness felt alive, pulsing with an unseen menace. The power returned hours later, flooding my room with light. Everything looked normal, but I knew it was just a facade. Whatever had come during the blackout wasn't gone. It had merely receded into the shadows, waiting for its next chance. I haven't had a peaceful night's sleep since. Every time the lights flicker, I hold my breath, expecting that creeping presence to return. I know it's still here, lurking just beyond the glow, an unseen guest that may never leave.